It's the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong, and today is July 18th. Now, we don't have a new number one to talk about, but there was a major shakeup in the top 5 last night. We're going to get into it today on this edition of the Wiltfong Whip Around. I'm your host, Josh Newberg. Before we get into it, though, make sure you guys are subscribed to the On3 Recruit channel, the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, whether it's the 5-Star Flex, the Inside Scoop, or the Whip Around. We got you covered. All right. Let's bring in my man, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve.
Josh, there is a new number one on our favorite metric on this show, pound for pound recruiting. It's the LSU Tigers after landing DJ Pickett. They leaped over Ohio State. They have the number one pound for pound recruiting class in America right now.
Okay, I like it. The Wiltfong Power Rankings have LSU surging on top. Now, they are different from the On3 industry rankings that have Alabama on top, but let's take a look at what happened last night that has Steve buzzing around the LSU Tigers.
And last, I'd like to say happy birthday to my mom. With that being said, for the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be taking my talents to the University of Louisiana State University.
Yeah, wow, LSU. DJ Pickett is a Tiger. Wow, unbelievable. DJ Pickett heading to LSU. DJ, when did you know? DJ, when did you know LSU would be the pick?
I mean, if you're a DB and Coach Raymond's at LSU, I feel like that's the right place to be at.
So, Steve, that right there, that was beautiful. Right here on the On3 Recruits channel, that was the moment that DJ Pickett picked LSU over Miami and Oregon. Steve, the intel all week was in favor of Oregon. Well, Oregon and Miami, they were both surging, but in the end, it's LSU. How did the Tigers win this one?
Well, the intel coming into the week was Oregon. The feel for after the official visits, when he moved up his official visit date, that it was trending well for Oregon. But if you go back to the last 2 best guess articles, had LSU as the prediction. So that's the school that I feel like has led for the majority of DJ Pickett's recruitment. And when it was time to dot I's, cross T's, sit down and discuss things with his family, LSU rises to the forefront. The relationship with Corey Raymond, the defensive back pedigree under Coach Raymond at LSU, the trajectory of the program, the class they're putting together, how comfortable he feels in Baton Rouge, all those other things, NIL, every component, it comes up LSU here for DJ Pickett as the Tigers are putting together an elite championship caliber recruiting class.
Yeah, hey, he said it after he committed. If you're a top DB and Corey Raymond's at LSU, why are you not at LSU? I mean, hey, he made it sound pretty simple right there. So Oregon and Miami, I mean, they both had a level, maybe high level of confidence heading into this commitment, but neither of them pick it up. Is it a big loss for either program?
Well, I think the caliber of talent that DJ Pickett is, it's a loss for any school that's a finalist. It's a bigger loss for Miami than Oregon when you talk about where these programs are at currently in college football. Oregon's a team that's one of the contenders for a Big Ten championship this year. They have a top 5 recruiting class right now. Miami looking to push into the top 10 here. They recruited a top 5 class last year, but they're trying to get it done on Saturdays. And DJ Pickett's that championship caliber talent, the difference maker, a guy in the secondary that can erase mismatches with his size and length. He can take on a tight end. He can take on those bigger receivers. He's physical. He's still maturing physically, but he's not afraid to put his face mask on somebody. He's going to be someone that's going to make plays around the line of scrimmage on the next level. And he's also a terrific receiver, just a talented natural football player. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year and 15 touchdowns. He'd be a 4-star receiver recruit, no question in my mind. Miami, we know the Hurricanes are going to continue to try and stay alive in that one, as will Oregon. But LSU is the place that has led for a lot of his process, and they ended up getting him in the end. The intel coming into the week, obviously put in that low RPM in favor of Oregon, but things started picking up for LSU, and they were able to get it done.
Man, LSU, and like you said, they are one of the hottest recruiting teams right now, but they are on the on-3 industry, they're sitting in third. They were at 1 at one point. They slid all the way down to 5, but with the commitment of DJ Pickett, they are right back in the thick of it for that number 1 spot. So what's next after landing DJ Pickett? Steve, we know wide receiver is a big need, and on this Saturday, a big one, literally 6'6", 205-pound wide receiver Derek Meadows out of Las Vegas, Nevada, is making his decision, and we think it's going to either be LSU or Notre Dame, but LSU is red hot. Do you think this is going to mean Derek Meadows will be a Tiger as well?
Well, he was slated to commit to LSU last weekend. LSU now trying to get it to the finish line this weekend. Notre Dame trying to give them hell on the trail. There's been dialogue with Michigan, Alabama, and Georgia rounding out the Final Five. There was a time where it looked like Alabama was in the top 2, but LSU has gotten hot here from Cortez Hankton and his pedigree to just a couple great experiences on campus. They even pointed to the food being awesome. But Brian Kelly coached against Derek Meadows' dad when he was at Grand Valley State. The guy who runs the education part for the football department, or the person, it's Derek's older brother's best friend's son. So there's some connections to LSU that make them feel very comfortable. Bryce Underwood being committed is a big factor. LSU, they already have Edna Carr receiver Teron Francis committed. He's a sub-11 guy at 200 pounds. He's physically going to be ready to come in and play on day one, but they want to add 2 or 3 more wideouts. And even when they lost to Corian Moore, a source around LSU said, we're still going to sign one of the best receiver classes in the country. Derek Meadows is a top 10 player at the position that they're on the short list for. And again, a source on Thursday morning said, I think LSU, they're going to be hard to beat. We'll see on Saturday. He's apparently turned off his phone, not talking to college coaches from Wednesday all the way up to the decision date. So he's trying to iron out some details, but LSU is well positioned.
Yeah, so we talk about Derek Meadows, but there's also a pair of 5-stars that are on the board. Do you think LSU could have a shot at a guy like a Jamie French or a Khalil Lockett as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie French says that he's either going to visit LSU or Miami on next Friday when recruits are back on the road, and he's leaning towards visiting LSU right now. Texas is the on-3 RPM favorite. LSU and Miami are the 2 big threats to the Longhorns. And for Khalil Lockett, my on-3 RPM is on Texas. But similar to DJ Pickett, LSU has led for Khalil Lockett, in my opinion, earlier in his process. So we'll see if they can make a late charge there for Khalil Lockett. But Jamie French expected to visit LSU next Friday, potentially, unless he changes his mind and goes over to goes over to Miami.
Yeah. All right. So we know LSU needs another wide receiver or 2. We also know they want to finalize that DB position before this 2025 class closes out. There's a couple targets at DB that could push them even higher up those on-3 industry rankings. You got Jonah Williams, and I'm also looking at Anquan Fagans. And Fagans is going to make his decision right here on the On3 Recruits channel on July 29th.
Yeah, absolutely. He's visiting LSU next Friday for sure. Then he's going to go over to Auburn on Saturday and visit the Tigers. The Tigers have been considered the leader since the spring, the Auburn Tigers. But the LSU Tigers are maybe their toughest competition here at the end. Clemson and Georgia rounding out the top 4. Alabama maybe making a potential late push as well. But LSU getting another opportunity next Friday to make an impression. And so I look at them as the biggest challenger to Auburn. And then Jonah Williams, depending on who you talk to, LSU's in the top 2 or 3 for him. Baseball is also going to be a big part of his decision. He plans to play football and baseball on the next level. He just touched 94 miles per hour on the gun. That's big time for a left-handed pitcher this past week. So exciting baseball prospect that's excited about LSU. His dad tells me that they're still looking into taking some potential visits next week, but Oregon, Texas A&M, LSU are 3 programs that I'm looking hard at for Jonah Williams.
Wow, LSU now creeping into the conversation for Jonah Williams as a serious contender. I mean, hey, you can't doubt it after DJ Pickett did what he did. All right, I want to get some more LSU intel before we move on. We got a couple more big names on the board. One of them is Jabari Antoine that's going to be making his decision this Saturday right here on the On3 Recruits channel. Jabari Antoine was committed to LSU about 3 weeks ago. He decommitted He opened it up. He went on a visit to FSU in Miami. But today he tells On3's Chad Simmons that it's going to be 2 schools for him. It's going to be Miami or LSU. And after landing DJ Pickett, I'm looking at this recruitment a little bit differently. Does Jabari Antoine have a real chance to land back on that Tiger commit list?
Well, I think ultimately, yes. Right now, the momentum is with Miami. The Hurricanes are the program to watch going into the announcement, but we still got 48 hours. And talking to Shea Dixon, LSU is going to really turn it up here with Jabari Antoine and try and get him back in the fold alongside DJ Pickett. So certainly, like Miami won't go away for DJ Pickett, if the Hurricanes end up landing Jabari Antoine, LSU is not going to just back off and throw in the towel for the rest of the cycle as well.
Yeah, and then there's one big name floating out there that could just really change the trajectory of this LSU class, and I'm talking JaMarr Stewart. Yeah, he's in the 2026 class. He's the number 1 defensive lineman in America, but Steve, there's been whispers all offseason that he might reclassify to the 2025 cycle. If that, one, do you think that there's a chance that happens? And 2, if it does happen, where do you think LSU sits?
Well, in June, I was told he was still working towards that. So we'll see what happens as he tries to get everything academically ready to reclassify. He's certainly physically ready to go. And he camped at LSU this summer. And while there's been a lot of buzz around Oregon, Ohio State, and USC, those are not programs that typically come into Louisiana and beat the Tigers for a prospect. If you tell me it's Nick Saban in Alabama, we've seen them historically get some big wins in the state of Louisiana. We've seen Texas A&M maybe get 1 or 2 over the course of time, but LSU is extremely hard to beat for prized in-state talents. And so even though we've talked a lot about USC and we've talked a lot about Ohio State and Oregon, and maybe at times I've even said, I think USC leads for JaMarr Stewart, when it's actually time for him to make his college decision, LSU is going to be right there. He's going to be at the LSU season opener this year in Las Vegas against USC. And he really enjoyed working with Coach Bo Davis at camp, liked his aggressive coaching style, said he's a country boy, I'm a country boy. And then he's talked about LSU being the hometown school. So at the end of the day, LSU will turn it up for JaMarr Stewart, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see if he's in the 2025 class or the 2026 class. But as LSU's pushing for number 1, he's another potential big chip on the board as they battle Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon for the number 1 class in the country.
Whew. All right, LSU fans, you got to be feeling good as this week is coming to an end. Let us know, comment section below, who could be the next to commit to LSU. Let us know. All right, Steve, I want to talk a little bit about the top 10 right now. If you look at these industry rankings, got Alabama number 1, Ohio State 2, LSU 3, Georgia 4, Oregon 5, A&M sitting at 6 right now, Notre Dame 7, Clemson at 8, Florida State 9, and Oklahoma 10. So those are the On3 industry rankings, but I like your power rankings. Let's do a little heat check. You got LSU number 1 right now in the Wiltfong power rankings. How would your top 5 look, just in terms of recruiting momentum right now?
Well, my power rankings are real easy to look up. You just take your cursor to the On3 industry rankings and you drag that son of a gun over average rating. You click it, you got LSU 1. Ohio State is 2 right now with that corner class of Devin Sanchez and Naeem Offord, along with quarterback Tavian St. Clair leading the way. They want to land the number 1 offensive tackle in the land, David Sanders Jr., to that class. Maybe David Sanders takes some visits next week. Talked to his mom earlier in the week about that. She said they were still looking into logistics for that. But Tennessee, Nebraska, and Georgia rounding out his top 4. You got Oregon out there. They're hoping to land 5-star safety Trey McNutt later this week. They're in it for Jonah Williams, among others. Alabama, they're number 4 in average rating per commit right now. They got A.K. Deere out there, the number 2 running back in the country. Love where Alabama stands with him. Khalil Lockett, they're in the top 2 or 3, 4, 5-star receiver from Texas. Georgia, they got Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, the 2 5-star defensive linemen. Big Juan Gaston's going to commit soon, a big offensive lineman from Atlanta Westlake. So Georgia's in strong position. They're battling Tennessee for Christian Gass, who's going to commit soon. He's a prize second-level defender, edge type that they would love to add that recently moved into the On3 top 100. So those are the schools, those are the classes, those are some of the guys still out there in the battle for number one.
Yeah. All right. You guys tap in with us. Let us know, who do you guys think is going to finish number one overall? Could it be LSU? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's talk about some weekend announcements. Now, we got a few going down here on the On3 Recruits channel, and we'll start with the big one that's going to go down on Friday out of Cleveland, Ohio. Trey McNutt is going to make his decision, the 5-star safety, the number 2 safety in America. He's had a long, winding recruitment that's going to end this Friday. Break it down for us.
Well, as of 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday morning, July 18th, as I talk to you right now, Josh, still leaning with Oregon for Trey McNutt, but Texas A&M's the program that is trying to make a move on the Ducks. Ducks have the number 5 recruiting class in the country per the On3 industry. Texas A&M is at number 6. So that could be a pivotal recruitment. Maybe the Aggies can move into the top 5 with Trey McNutt. But right now I'm still leaning towards Oregon for Trey McNutt, who moved up his decision timeline. He originally was planning to commit during the fall, maybe take an official to Georgia and Ohio State. But after officials to USC, Florida, Texas A&M, and Oregon, he's ready to go. I thought Oregon led in the spring, thought they doubled down on their summer official. It's getting tight with the Aggies at the end, but people close to McNutt still like where Oregon stands.
All right. And then on Sunday, we have another big one. Vernell Brown III, one of the top players in the state of Florida, is set to make his announcement. At one point, it looked like he was going to leave the state for Ohio State, but Vernell Brown now seems like an in-state battle.
I like where Florida stands right now. This is a guy that could help maybe get them rolling, get some recruiting momentum going into the season. Then they open up against Miami, maybe get a win in that one. But I think Florida's the one to beat. If they can add Vernell Brown to Joshua Moore, that gives them 2 top 100 ranked On3 receivers, 2 of the best in the country, top 10 players at wide out. Would be huge for them. Billy Napier's track record of receivers, them needing playmakers. But I think in the end for Vernell, I liked Ohio State in the spring, but he grew up in the swamp. His dad played there. His grandfather played there. I don't think it matters if you or I were coaching Florida. He was born to be a Gator. He wants to help restore some glory to the team he grew up rooting for. And I love where Florida stands going into Vernell's announcement.
All right, Vernell Brown likely staying in state, but how about Floyd Buchard, the defensive lineman from the Miami area? He sounds like he's leaving the state when he makes his announcement this weekend.
Yeah, in the spring, early in the summer during official visits coming out of the USC official, it looked like the Trojans were going to be tough to beat. But working this story with our colleague Chad Simmons, sounds like Oklahoma has some momentum with Floyd Buchard going into the weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be real interesting. Now, another interesting commitment coming down this weekend is Christian Gass, the linebacker. It seems like this is a Tennessee-Georgia battle.
Yeah, also working this story with Chad Simmons. Tennessee has had some major momentum at times here, just when it looks like you can just stamp the Vols. Something about Georgia just pulls him back. I think he loves the way they develop their players, loves Coach Schumann, knows he's a priority with the Bulldogs. So while I talk to you at 11 in the morning on Thursday, I'd still lean towards Tennessee. I think that you cannot sleep on Georgia here as they try and push for one of their top remaining targets in 2025 as well.
All right, let's head to South Georgia, where big man Cortez Smith, the interior offensive lineman, is set to make his decision this weekend. What's your read on Cortez?
I like Georgia for Cortez Smith, out of Parkview High there. He wants to go to a place that's going to bring the best out of him. He emphasizes that in every single interview. And his time and experience at Georgia, being around Coach Searles, Coach Smart, the players, he thinks that's the environment to do it. I like where Georgia stands. My On3 RPM reflects that. Nice.
Now, let's talk a little Andrew Babalola. Now, I know he's not on the weekend announcement intel, but you did have some intel on him today on the on3.com front page. Tell us about Andrew and the 5-star offensive tackle.
Yeah, I expect him to be off the board by August 12th. That's his first day of school. He's looking for
Mm-hmm.
a place that fits him overall, relationship standpoint with the coaches, players, development, academics, overall feel. And my RPM is on Stanford, but Michigan is really moving the needle. They continue to do so with great dialogue with him, his mom, since his official visit. And Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Andrew Babalola. I felt good about Stanford leading coming into the official visits. They got to continue to hold off Michigan as Sharon Moore and company make a major push for one of their top overall targets. You have Missouri, Oklahoma, and Auburn rounding out the top five, but I'm continuing to look at Stanford and Michigan as the two that I think have the best shot to ultimately land him.
All right, Steve, take the whip around home with these latest RPM picks for two top programs in the state of Texas.
Yeah, Josh, one of my recent picks joined Chad Simmons from on 300 running back Michael Turner to Baylor. After he visited SMU again for the Pony Express recruiting weekend, it looked like SMU was still the leader. But talking to multiple sources, including sources around SMU, this one is lining up well for Baylor, who has been on a bit of a hot streak for top targets in state. And Daquan Prevost is a 2026 receiver from the state of Texas who's also going to commit at the end of the month. And Texas A&M is trending for him. I've liked Texas A&M for a long time for Prevost here. And now that he is locked in his decision date, it's looking good for Mike Elko and the Aggies to land one of the state's best in the 2026 cycle. That will do it for this week's episode of Wilt Fong Whip Around. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, please hit like and subscribe so you're up to date on the next episode of Whip Around, the 5-Star Flex, the Inside Scoop, or all these commitments that we're hosting, with Trey McNutt being the next to announce his commitment on the On3 platform on Friday. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you back on Monday for the Wilt Fong Whip Around.